My name is Lydia Tran. I'm 36, a music therapist based in New Orleans. I help stroke survivors find their voice again through rhythm, not words. I live with someone who hears even when I don't speak. His name is Jude. We were having coffee Saturday morning when the message came. She signed. He locked her out. 7 words. That was all it took to rip me out of my life and throw me across state lines. By sunset, I was back in Santa Barbara, Tran Vineyards, the place where I grew up chasing chickens and humming choppin' in the fermentation shed. But this time, there were no buckets of grapes. No po-po in the kitchen making jasmine rice. Just fog, wet soil, and a house that no longer felt like it remembered me. Jude had offered to come. I told him no. This is between me and my father. He didn't argue, just handed me a small field recorder and said, in case she finally decides to talk. The porch lights were still on when I pulled up. And there she was. Po-po Elinor Tran Wung, 84 years old, barefoot, wearing her red windbreaker, the one with the missing zipper tooth, standing under the edge of the awning, holding 2 things, a plastic folder, and a silk-wrapped bundle. She didn't wave. She didn't cry. She just held the folder toward me like it weighed more than she did. I took it. Inside, the deed. Signed. Notarized. Filed. My father's name stamped over every acre she once bled into. I looked up just as the front door creaked open. Gregory Tran, my father. Still in his golf vest, glass of Merlot in hand, probably not even from our own barrels. He looked down at us, then said without blinking, "She signed, it's done." I gave her the chance to stay. She declined. Then he turned and shut the door behind him. Po-po didn't flinch, but her shoulders folded inward the way they did when she had to pretend not to understand English. I didn't ask questions. Not yet. Instead, I stepped closer. She extended the silk bundle next. It was soft, carefully folded, still faintly warm. Inside was a stack of yellowed sheet music, handwritten, notes curved with deliberate grace. At the top of the first page, Waltz for the Forgotten, by Elinor T.W., 1962. And on the final page, written lightly in the corner, "If they erase my name, let them hear my voice." By sunrise, I was back in my hotel room in Santa Barbara. Sheet music spread across the bed like a map I wasn't trained to read. The piece was called Waltz for the Forgotten, but nothing about it felt forgotten. I ran my fingers along the margins. There were pencil marks in 3 languages, French tempo notations, English key changes, and something that looked like Cantonese, faint but intentional. I texted Jude a photo. He called within minutes. "That title's a declaration," he said. She knew what they were trying to erase. That afternoon, I booked a session at a local studio Jude had once used for one of his documentaries. The pianist on call was a session player named Eva Kim, trained in classical and modern Cantonese scales. She studied the sheet for a long moment, then raised her brows. "Where did you get this?" "From a woman who just lost her house." Eva sat down and began to play. The melody was strange, familiar, like a lullaby played backward. By the second page, she paused. "This section here, it's not a mistake, it's a disruption. A protest." She turned to the last page and pointed. "That's a coordinate." I blinked. A coordinate. There in tiny numbers at the bottom corner. 34. 4,943 degrees N, 119. 7,439 degrees W. I copied it into my phone. Jude texted 5 minutes later. "Those are Santa Barbara County plot coordinates, not far from your old barn." That night, Jude flew in from New Orleans without telling me. He met me outside the barn with 2 flashlights, a foldable trowel, and a bag of takeout. "You didn't ask me to come," he said, handing me dumplings. "But I figured music leaves clues." We followed the GPS to a cluster of olive trees behind the far fence, a place I barely remembered. The soil there was unusually soft. We dug with our hands. Carefully. 12 inches down, we hit a lacquered wood box. Inside, a red envelope sealed with wax. A black and white photo of Po-po in 1962, seated at a piano, hair curled, eyes defiant. And a legal document folded into thirds. I pulled it open slowly. Last Will and Testament of Lydia Tran, dated August 12, 2023, executed under full mental clarity, witnessed, signed, notarized, and in the bequeath section, one line, to my granddaughter Lydia, the only one who ever listened, I leave the vineyard in its entirety. Let no man commodify my silence. I stood frozen, document in hand. Jude looked at me. You know what this means, right? Yeah, I said, breath catching. It means my father forged the new one. We didn't sleep. By dawn, Jude and I were at a copy center near Mission Street, scanning each page of the will, sealing it in waterproof sleeves, uploading backup PDFs to encrypted drives. I emailed a lawyer from New Orleans. He didn't need to say the word fraud. It was already humming beneath everything. If your father filed a more recent version, he warned, the court won't care what this one says unless you can prove coercion, mental decline, or forgery. What if I can prove motive? I asked. Then you're not just fighting for property, he said. You're fighting for a woman's voice. We brought the reel of 16 film to a digitization lab in Koreatown that owed Jude a favor. The footage came back that evening. It showed a leaner in 1963, New Orleans, sitting at a Steinway Grand, a single spotlight, an audience blurred in the shadows. She wore a white kippah with phoenix embroidery. Eyes closed, hands hovering just above the keys. Then she played. Not the same Waltz for the Forgotten I'd heard yesterday. This one had vocals. Spoken word phrases in Cantonese between phrases. Her voice, quiet, low, defiant. Jude paused the frame and boosted the audio. We called Marion Liu, my old music history professor, to translate. She listened in silence for 2 full minutes, then said, she wasn't just performing, she was confessing and protesting. They took the name from my paper, replaced it with theirs, but the melody remains mine, and I will bury it where they cannot touch. Po wasn't just erased. She had seen it coming and coded her protest into music, a kind of legal time bomb. The next morning, we served my father a legal notice, contesting the deed transfer. He read it without blinking. Your grandmother gave that land to me. She signed it. She was pressured. That's your interpretation. Then I slid the film's screenshot across the table. This isn't interpretation, it's evidence. That's from 60 years ago. Exactly, and she never stopped speaking. He scoffed, this a song, this isn't legal. Jude stepped in, calm as stone. It's not just a song, it's a sworn oral testimony. And with the original will and timestamped performance, you're the one who will be explaining this in court. That night, I found Po asleep at a neighbor's place, her legs wrapped in an electric blanket. I sat beside her with the headphones and played the digitized audio. At first, she didn't move. Then a tear rolled down her cheek. They never knew I recorded it, she whispered. I buried it when Lydia was born, in case I ever needed to be heard. Santa Barbara County Courthouse. 8:42 a.m., overcast skies. Po wore her red windbreaker, same one she'd been forced to leave in. Jude walked beside us, carrying the reel-to-digital player and the certified copy of her true will. Inside courtroom B, my father sat with his lawyer, cufflinks glinting. He didn't look at us. Didn't need to. The room had maybe 30 people, mostly spectators, 3 Vineyard board members, and 1 reporter from the local paper who recognized the name Tran Vineyards and smelled family fire. The judge was direct. Ms. Tran, you claim this land transfer was not voluntary. Correct, Your Honor. The signature was extracted under pressure and misinformation. And do you have evidence? Yes, but it's not what you expect. I nodded to Jude, who stood, set the small player on the table and pressed play. At first, static, then the gentle crackle of reel film, a soft exhale, then the first chord. Low, slow. Po's voice wove between the notes in Cantonese, then English. I write this as they rewrite me. They think silence means surrender. But a waltz can outlive paper. The courtroom was utterly still. My father's lawyer objected. Your Honor, this is sentimental, not admissible. It's an affidavit, I countered. Performed, preserved, time-stamped, it meets conditions of intent. Let it play, said the judge. Sometimes the truth has a melody. 3 minutes in, the final note rang out, then silence. Po stood up slowly, held up the original will. "I speak not for land," she said quietly. "I speak for memory. Because if we let them own that too, then we no longer belong anywhere." The judge looked at her, then at me, then said, "Emergency injunction is granted. Transfer of title is frozen until full investigation. Court requests translation and transcription of audio within 7 days." My father stood up. "You think this saves you?" I turned to him. "It doesn't save me. It saves her story, and I'll play it until they all hear it." Back outside, Jude handed Po a thermos of tea. She took it with trembling hands. "I never thought they'd hear me," she said. "They didn't," Jude answered. "But they felt you." We opened the doors on a Sunday. No ribbon cutting. No speeches. No sponsored wine. Just folding chairs, a donated piano, and the soft sound of wind weaving through old vines. We called it Eliner's Words, a place for the unwritten. The front room still smelled faintly of fermented grapes and incense, but now it held shelves full of handwritten poems in Cantonese, Vietnamese, Khmer. Cookbooks passed down on rice paper. Audio reels of women who had never stood behind podiums, but ran entire households on 2 languages and no praise. Po sat at the piano. She didn't play. She simply rested her hands on the keys like they were bones of something sacred she once buried. Behind her, we hung the only photo she allowed. 1962, New Orleans. She wore a white kippah and defiance. We converted the cellar into a workshop space. Every Thursday, Jude ran recording sessions. Elders came in to tell their stories, one phrase at a time, in whatever language they chose. Even silence had its track. By fall, we had 24 oral histories. One was Po's, but this time she spoke in English, not because she was asked, but because she chose to. One evening, a letter arrived. Handwritten, no return address, from my father. I saw the story in the paper. I saw you. And I remembered her hands, not when she played, but when she poured tea. I didn't know how to inherit that. I thought land was the only legacy worth keeping. I was wrong. I'm not asking to be part of this. I just wanted to say, you didn't just restore the vineyard. You restored her. Thank you for not burying what I was too afraid to carry. I didn't reply, but I left the letter on the altar, right beside the sill-cracked music score. 1 year later, we held the first Waltz for the Forgotten recital. 15 students, 4 instruments, 3 languages, 1 stage. And in the last row, a woman in a red windbreaker stood quietly, hands folded, eyes full, not erased, not forgot.